So next we have Dinesh, my counterpart with Amtex, and he's going to kind of walk through more of just general, some of the conversations we've had with people, kind of how we've helped clients understand it and use cases that, you know, that kind of apply to some of the things that we've talked to people about. So that being said, Dinesh.
Thank you, Tim. Are you guys able to hear me, see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, excellent. So yes, I mean, my part of the conversation will center around our conversations with our customers about their data virtualization needs. And typically, this started, you know, we wanted to, you know, we've had typical scenario conversations, and no customers ever come to us and said, I need a data virtualization product. So we've had conversations around their symptoms, and I want to throw some light on what those symptoms are. And what potential solutions from data virtualization could be applied to those. Now, before I do that, I know Kevin started to talk about the whys and what the product can do in terms of assimilating different data sources and whatnot. I'm going to talk a little bit about the why as well, and I'm going to talk about some core pieces of data virtualization, some core concepts. So if you keep that in mind, as you know, and if you're a customer, you know, thinking about data virtualization as a solution for you, we're going to throw out some scenarios on you know, when does data virtualization work, and conversely, when does it not work for you. So we'll have some of those discussions. I'll also talk about a little bit about how the product works. It will be supplemental to what Kevin covered earlier, and we'll take it from there. So it's getting into the why. So, you know, firstly, the ability to combine disparate data sources. And like Kevin showed in his slide, he had a lot of different data sources. And you know, if you're an organization that brings in data from all your different departments and different formats, some of them cloud, some of them on-prem, some of them structured, some of them unstructured, then, you know, you have the ability to bring it all into one virtual layer. And the goal of improving productivity and accelerating the time to insights. And you know, and while the term time to insights might appear to be or sound like a salesy term, what we're really saying is that your application build lifecycle significantly reduces. And like Kevin and Joe touched upon, one of the other central concepts here is the need for reducing significantly the need for multiple copies of data repositories and physical storage of consolidated data. And in the symptom section, I want to call this a symptom section, and in some of the previous webinars as well, we've talked about this like it was a doctor diagnosing a problem. While, you know, in reality, when you're having this conversation with an organization, with an enterprise, it's really about pain points. It's really about specific issues, and they tell you something, and you know, they want a solution for that immediate point that they talk about. But if you look at it in you know, as a whole, then you're looking at a, you know, a potential data virtualization need. So, you know, we'll be throwing out some scenarios like that. Now, what is data virtualization? It's a single location for managing and creating purpose-driven virtual data pointers. What we mean by that is that, you know, you're bringing transactional data sources, you're bringing different types of data systems, bringing different data formats, and then creating, you know, one or a singular set of virtualized data layers that allows you to now have a you know, very controllable set of the versions of truth that you're interested in. So it develops that one layer of data, and from this layer of data, you know, Joe showed us how you can use this to develop WebFOCUS dashboards, WebFOCUS applications. Similarly, you can, you know, the sky is the limit after that. You know, you can use this to send data services across various applications, be it operational applications, be it traditional BI applications, regulatory compliance type applications like Kevin mentioned. So, you know, once the virtualized layer is set robust, almost like a data warehouse, So, if you have conversations with data, implementation, solution providers for data warehouses, they talk about that being that, destination from which the world is the world is your oyster. It's a similar approach, really. Once you have this virtualized layer set and robust, then you can create any kinds of applications on top of it that you want, and you can use any kind of data services that you want. Or you can be really simple and just do SQL scripts and SQL procedures and relational database type queries that can allow you to build applications, that can allow you to retrieve data. So you can do a lot of different things with that robust data repository. How it works. Now, the first step on this is, you're quickly accessing different data sources through connectors and bringing the metadata. One thing organizations would do well to keep in mind is that only the virtual data is coming into the TDV layer, so to say. And then you're creating that source view in that virtual data layer. And once that virtual data layer is set, now you're transforming and you're integrating, you're building some query optimization into this layer. And now you're creating these views into a business-friendly view. And this can be viewed in a scripted environment, or it can be viewed in a GUI-based environment. And then once your metadata layer is set, you can use these virtual data views into SQL or any other data formats you like. Now, another important point is what it's not. It's a little bit of a myth buster type setup. But we've had these questions come up with our customers, and I want to make sure that this is what data virtualization is not. It is not a data visualization tool. I'm hoping that would be apparent from Joe's discussion here. He showed how TDV integrates with WebFOCUS. But all data virtualization is a middleware that streamlines the collection of data that defines that virtual layer. It is not a data visualization tool, and it's not a replicated data store. The fundamental concept here is that you want to significantly reduce data replication, and you also, if possible, eliminate data replication and try to go against a single version of truth or a very controllable versions of truth that you have. Sometimes a single version of truth is not completely possible based on history and based on incremental data and whatnot. But we're talking ability to virtualize your data so that your replication needs come way down. And again, this is enabled by the fact that this only stores metadata for virtual views and it stores integration logic. It is also not a full-blown logical data warehouse. It is not a structured physical data repository. Again, we'll talk more about this in the symptom section. But if you are an organization looking for all of your data to be physically present in one logical data warehouse with any questions that you might ask, that you're asking today, that you might ask in the future, with various aggregation levels, with source to target data mapping, and all of those things, then you're asking for an enterprise data warehouse. And data virtualization is not that. What can it actually do? So hybrid query optimization. This allows for the optimization of queries, and even with on-demand pull and on scheduled batch push type data requests. So when you're trying to get physical data into a format that's consumable by your audience, then what you want is good performance. You don't want time lags. You don't want faster or slower application builds, whatnot. So what data virtualization allows you to do fundamentally, by this being a virtual layer, is an optimized query. And the engine allows you to optimize queries and allows you to bring data into the BI ecosystem, as an example, faster. This also brings users integrated information. I mentioned source to data mapping. I mentioned transactional data at the lowest level of granularity, things like that. So those, when you're typically working with them, and when you're typically working with them in an enterprise data warehouse type mindset, then then you're working with the complexity itself. A data virtualization tool, TDV, definitely will allow you to hide these complexities from your power users, from your end users. And like Joe showed, the security and any, if you're a WebFOCUS user, and if you've seen authorization, authentication and privileges given to your consumer base, to your user base, all of those are easily available and are, you can apply the same principles, same concepts, and bring it into a data virtualization environment as well. And data governance. So, and while this is not built to be a pure data governance tool, there are a lot of data governance tools out there. There are a lot of data lineage tools meant only to provide pure data lineage. And Joe was able to show some data lineage, in the tool, in the console itself. Now we're talking, this also gives you that ability. This also gives you the ability to understand what happened to your data, given some point in time. How did it transform over time? Things like that. So it allows you to govern the data. It allows you to define stakeholders and data stewards and whatnot. So this is kind of the capabilities and the why and how it works. And I've kept it generic, data virtualization as a principle, but TIBCO data virtualization in specific. Now I want to talk a little bit about some symptoms and the solutions for those symptoms that we've had with our customers. A use case one, again, this is probably a common use case. And if this is you, and if you're having questions, and a lot of these symptoms might be conflicting with each other. And so if this sounds like you, and if you need to have we need to have a deeper conversation, we can certainly do that. So the first, fundamental symptom is the lack of a centrally consolidated and a governed data ecosystem or a landscape. So if you have a complex and diverse data landscapes, a lot of our client organizations have complex and diverse data landscapes, different business groups using their own BI tools, which means fundamentally that the sources of truth have grown in time. The individual data elements that they've used has grown in time. And information in one data system now conflicts with information in another data system, especially if they're same data. So sources of truth issues. And typically, if you're relying on ESBs or integration tools, ETL tools to integrate data, then you're creating more layers of data than you need to be. So they're just like you would in a business intelligence use case when you're building an application. A reset is warranted in this case, and it would serve you well to have a discussion on how to bring these excessive replication layers down and try to virtualize this. And having native virtualization capabilities allows you to reduce these layers. And what does replication cost? Again, these are supplemental symptoms. So it creates data latencies, inconsistencies, and multiple versions of the truth. So again, from a solution standpoint, through our implementation, we were able to look at TDV as a business translation layer, that single semantic layer that provides a consolidated view of the entire enterprise data and reducing replication. Again, one thing I will say here is that you are better off served if you're early in this process of defining what your data strategy is. But if you've already built out a data ecosystem that has a lot of replicated data, then it calls for a reset. This also TD also allowed this customer of ours to have a single point of entry to all of the company's data sources and eliminating need for each consuming application and each of the consuming business groups to connect to each of these data sources individually. So you are nipping the bud on the philosophy of creating replicated data sources. Another use case is, again, an enterprise data warehouse nightmare. So if you're talking enterprise data warehouse construction, typical life cycles are a year to 2 years, sometimes more. And you're talking design architecture, schemas, talking, modeling the data and bringing the the tables, creating the tables, understanding the relationship between those tables, understanding the primary key, foreign key relationships, whatnot. So the historical and incremental loads are also things that have slowed down our customers. So, the BI layers typically need to adapt to availability inside of this data warehouse, instead of this being the reverse. You want your BI needs or your data warehouse to be flexible and serve any business intelligence use case. So these are symptoms of an enterprise data warehouse nightmare, a time to insights problem. So this particular customer was having a 7 to 8 month application build life cycle for each of their data elements, for each of the business groups. So again, introducing latencies, which can lead to issues with timeliness and accuracy. So what we've done is, through the implementation of TIBCO Data Virtualization, we've automated the difficult and time-consuming work, and we've reduced the integration process required, and promoted object reuse. So if you create the data layers once, the virtualized data layers once, you provide ability to reuse those objects more frequently, and again, it's constant access to that single version of truth. Just in summary, a lot of the benefits that we've talked about, no integration layers are required. And like Kevin mentioned earlier, there is no physical storage overhead costs. You're only moving the data virtually until the time that you're actually calling an application or calling a web service to get your physical data in. There are no ETL type overnight batch runs. There are no integration flow maintenance. There's no one ETL flow causing the entire BI stack to fail and waiting for that ETL person to fix this. And this also helps a centralized data catalog, and a data governance process, and also helps with real-time query execution. I think I've passed my time here. I'll give this back to Tim.